Great, thanks, Ryan. It's awesome to be here. Finally presenting a webinar with Unbounce. You know, I've been involved with Unbounce for quite a few years now, and as an advisor and investor, and watching how the company's growing, it's awesome. It's a great tool, and happy to be here to share some insights and some ideas with the Unbounce followers. And you guys have done an amazing job of creating some great content out there and gathering a huge following, which is very cool. So what I'll do is go get right into the content. After, of course, there's this one slide, obligatory intro about who I am. Some of you I probably haven't met yet. And so what we do, just to give you the perspective of the approach we take, is I founded WiderFunnel in 2007, and all we do is conversion optimization. That's it. So I'm going to talk about how we do that. I'm also really happy to have just released a book on conversion optimization called You Should Test That. That was published by Wiley. And there's actually also a free chapter you can download at youshouldtestthat.com. So I'll just mention that if you're interested in grabbing that before they're all gone. Well, they won't all be gone. They're all PDFs. But you can grab that at youshouldtestthat.com. And one slide about who WiderFunnel is. So as I said, all we do is conversion optimization. And we partner with our clients to dramatically lift their profit with marketing optimization. That's all we do. We work with high traffic companies to test all of the marketing ideas and concepts and find out what really works. And I always get this question at the end, so I just want to clarify. When we do that, we do everything from developing a conversion optimization strategy, graphic design and copywriting and testing and web analytics and analyzing the results. And so far, knock on wood, every client has had conversion rate lift of 10% to 700% and more. And we publish a lot of our tips as well on the WiderFunnel blog at widerfunnel.com/blog. And you can join up there as well. So let's get right into the content. What we'll be talking about today is, first of all, what's happening in conversion optimization. So the state of the industry. And I'm going to talk about how people are running into problems, how to avoid those, and the one factor that increases conversion effectiveness by 200%, how to create the best hypotheses for your tests, a framework specifically for testing your value proposition. I've never presented this on a webinar before, so this will be some new stuff to take away. And we'll be interspersing it with 3 case studies. So you'll be able to see some examples of some things that you might be able to recognize from in your own situation. So first of all, what we're seeing is conversion rate dissatisfaction is growing. Year over year, more people are saying that they understand that they need to improve their conversion rate. They're dissatisfied with their conversion rate. And yet, at the same time, they're having a difficulty improving their conversion rate. Year over year, more companies are saying they have not been able to improve their conversion rate, even though they're putting more emphasis on it. In fact, this year, conversion optimization is the #1 priority for digital marketers, tied with content marketing, in a study by eConsultancy. So what's happening? We're putting all this effort into it, and yet they're not getting results all the time. The problem is, a lot of times people are doing it wrong. They've just got bad advice. And I can't speak for everyone, but I know what we're seeing with our clients is average conversion rate lifts of 23% for e-commerce and 49% for lead gen. And so clearly that makes a huge impact in their business, right? Enabling a conversion optimization strategy works. And I'm going to show you how, with some examples, we're getting results like this and how you can too. So first of all, I want to start with an example for Iron Mountain. Now, we've got a 3-year track record of working with Iron Mountain to optimize conversion rates for many pages throughout their website, their templates, and their landing pages. They came to us 3 years ago with a situation where they had 17,000 web pages, and that didn't even include all of the separate landing pages they were hosting outside of their website. So what we did is we developed a conversion optimization strategy for them to prioritize where to test and to continuously iterate. And I'm going to show you some examples here. Actually, let's start with one example. This is for a landing page for their data backup, storage, and recovery. So this is the control page that we started with, and this ended up being a high priority page. So after we prioritized where to test, this was one of the top ones that bubbled up as a high priority, important product service for them. And so what we did, is looking at this page. You may be in a situation where you've got key pages on your website. They may be paid search landing pages. They may be product pages on your website. But how do you determine what that page should look like, right? You probably, if you're in a larger organization, you'll have a digital agency that'll come in, they'll show up with their concept boards and they'll present them on their boardroom table and they'll say, okay, here are our concepts. How do you choose which one goes live? You may have a designer, right? Your cousin may design a page for you. But how do you decide if that's the best design? A lot of companies are using the HIPPO method, which you may be familiar with, right? The highest paid person's opinion. And that HIPPO will point to the one they like, and that's the one that invariably everyone's opinion surrounds, and that's the one that goes live. A lot of companies are using the black turtleneck method, I call it, where the guy with the sunglasses in the boardroom, right? He picks the one that he likes because he has the opinions, and that's what goes live. So, but you're smart marketers, and you're here on an Unbounce webinar, so you know better than that, right? You're using the scientific method, and this is the basics, but this is to make sure we're all talking about the same thing when we talk about testing. And what we're talking about is randomly directing your visitors to different pages or swapping the content and then tracking the conversion rate, right? Whether it's through any channel, whether it's phone calls or online form fills or e-commerce purchases, lead gen, downloads, you can track all of those things to conversion. And if you understand their value, you can optimize your revenue and really get the best results. And so that's what scientific marketing is all about. It's testing and iterating. It's split testing, and it's as simple as that. But there's a lot of nuance to getting the best results. So let's get back to that Iron Mountain example and take a look at what happened here. So these are two of the variations that we tested. And what you'll see is on variation A, actually for both of them, they're dramatically redesigned against the control, right? And what we did, this is part of the strategy that we developed for them, is starting with what we call a variable cluster test, where we've made many different variations within that each page to really swing for the fences and make a huge conversion rate lift. And then also within that test plan, we've isolated variables. So you'll see between variation A and B, there's an isolation. What it is an isolation of the copy. Variation A has copy that focuses on the benefits of working with Iron Mountain, a trusted provider of security, and it's talking about the benefits, and it's a concise page. Variation B gives more detail about the services, so it's got images and service features with detail, and it's a longer page. So the question is, which one won, right? And that's what we're testing for. But I'm going to get you to test your conversion skills as well. And I'm actually going to open up a poll so that you can vote on which one you think won. So you should see a poll in front of you. You could vote. Which one do you think had the highest conversion rate? Was it A, concise benefits, or B, service feature details? So go ahead and stick your vote in there. A for concise benefits, B for service details. You see the votes coming in, and very interesting results coming in. Go ahead, vote for A or for concise benefits, B, service details. And let's take a look at what you think, putting your best guesses. All right, good. I'll close the poll and take a look at the results. So look at that. We've got 59% of you voting for concise benefits. Now, I know that we've got some of the smartest marketers on the planet on the webinar right now. And so let's see if you're correct. Majority voted for A, but unfortunately, the winner was B in this case. 49.9% conversion rate lift for B. And so what it turned out is that they've got a marketing insight here as well. It turns out that just having a shorter page, we've all talked about, in many times, talked about reducing distraction, how a shorter page often works better. But in this case, they needed a little bit more detail. They needed more features about the product before they could take that action about of filling in the lead form. And that, of course, made a dramatic impact. Think about this. This was a paid search landing page. They're already driving expensive leads to this page. Now they're getting 50% more free leads to their sales force. It's always exciting when the marketing manager calls us up and says, hey, you won't believe this. My sales manager just walked down the hall and asked me, what the heck did you do to the landing page? Or what did you do to the website? We can't handle all the leads that are coming in. That's a fun call to get. And that's what 50% will do. So let's take a look at another example. This one's for consumer, right? The previous one was for B2B lead gen. This is for consumer lead gen. This is for Hair Club. Now, you're probably all familiar with Hair Club. They've been direct marketing advertisers for many years. They do DRTV and direct response radio, and now they have been doing a lot of AdWords direct response for the past few years. And so they came to us with a landing page that they needed to improve. They needed to get more leads for their local outlets, right? So here were two variations that were tested. Variation A, we call emotive images. So what it was is we had these, beautiful women and rotating images, these aspirational images, right? The kind of benefits you expect with a full head of hair, the kind of benefits I experience every day having a full head of hair. I'm just kidding. No, and then there's variation B, static text, and this was just isolating the content approach. So this was static text details about the offers and the options. So of course the question is which one won? And let's test your skills again. I'm going to open up a poll and take a look. Go ahead and vote on if you think it was emotive images with the beautiful aspirational scenarios, or variation B with the static text about the features. All right, go ahead and put your votes in there. I see most people voting. This is great. And some of you are abstaining because you're worried that you'll vote wrong. It's okay. We're not tracking the votes. You won't be measured on this. Your raise does not hinge on your vote here. All right, so let's close the poll and take a look at what you voted for. So wow, 62% voted for emotive images. So that's a conclusive result. And of course, the idea that we all believe in as marketers, don't we, is that sex sells, right? Well, let's take a look at what really happened. Turns out that the static images actually increased leads by 20% and beat out the sexy images. Now, you guys are playing along just perfectly today by voting for the wrong one. This is great. But it's a marketing rule, right? That sex sells. Well, it turns out that when you actually test it, it can actually be distracting. It can actually get your prospects thinking about something completely different. So, of course, the punchline is you should test that, right? This is why we test. Because think about this. We have a huge compendium of best practices as marketers that we believe in, right? Many marketers have this rule book that they follow, or their gut feeling and intuition. And yet you have to ask yourself, where did those best practices come from? The ability to test marketing with rapid iterative testing has really only been available for a few years. And yet most of these best practices and gut feelings and intuition have been around for much longer, this so-called common sense. And yet this concept is not new. We've known for many, many years that all of the advancements as a society in the last 200 years or so have come about from science, right? Everything from infant mortality improvements to life expectancy improvements to technology that we use every day is because of the scientific method. And yet marketers are this amazing subspecies of humanity that has decided that their intuition and their gut feeling is more powerful than science, right? They don't need to test because they know what works best. And yet that is just not the case. So we understand about testing, right? I'm preaching to the choir here. You guys are on an Unbounce webinar. You're the smartest of the smart marketers. But just committing to testing alone isn't enough. There's more needed. How you test is actually critical to getting your results. This number is important to understand. 200% is the value of a structured testing process. And I didn't just make that number up. This is a study by eConsultancy. And what they did is they looked at companies that had a conversion optimization program in place. And they looked at those that also reported having a large increases in sales. And it turns out those that have a structured approach to improving their conversion rate were twice as likely to also report large increases in sales from their program. So having the right approach and having the right process is critical to getting the best results. Otherwise, what will happen a lot of times is that you'll just start testing random things, using the spaghetti on the wall method, right? Seeing what sticks. And you can burn out organizational support, you can burn out your resources, you can get frustrated. And a lot of times I've seen people give up on testing because they just haven't gotten the right results. So of course, this is what we do every day. We've been developing this process for ourselves since 2007. And this is an overview of the process that we use. Now, I don't have time to get into all the detail about how this works, but I want to focus on a couple key areas today. First of all, I'm going to focus on the lift model that we use for developing hypotheses, developing the best hypotheses to test. And then I'm going to show you, just drill into the lift model to the core of the value proposition and how you can test that as well. Okay, so there's a lot more detail about this online. You can Google WiderFunnel process, lift model, Pi framework, all of this stuff you can find online as well. So the reason I want to focus on the lift model is that this is the most important part of your conversion optimization process, is asking the right questions. It's not about getting the right answers, because that just comes as a function of testing. But if you ask the right questions, powerful questions will give you powerful insights. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Now, the frameworks I'm going to show you, I want to just clarify for you, and the reason I show this is that these are some of the companies that we've been working with to optimize conversion rates. And whether you're in a B2B company or in B2C or affiliate marketing or subscription or lead gen or e-commerce, doesn't matter. We've probably worked in your industry. We've been doing this since 2007, worked with hundreds of companies for thousands of tests. And what we found is that the commonalities in target markets are much more important than the differences. And we're finding that people are people, regardless of if they're sitting in their business buying toner for their company or evaluating software, or if they're in their basement buying socks for their kids, right? They're all people that have to process information the same way. And a lot of times we're finding insights from B2B that applies directly to an e-commerce company and vice versa. So what I want to talk about is frameworks that you can use for whatever company you're in to get the best results. So let's take a look at the lift model. Some of you may have seen this. It's gotten pretty popular in conversion optimization circles, but I'll give you a quick overview and then show you how it works, and with an example that you can probably find some commonalities with your website as well. So the core of your conversion rate is your value proposition. That's the core of the lift model as well. There are a lot of different definitions for value proposition, and you probably have your own as well. I like to think of it as an equation with two sides that goes on in the prospect's mind between the perceived benefits of taking an action and the perceived costs. And if that perceived benefit is stronger than the perceived costs, they will have some motivation to take action. The value proposition will be positive. If it's not, if the costs are too high, it'll be negative and they'll bounce. But the perceived part of this is important too, because it's not just about the tangible features. It's not just about the tangible costs. There are intangibles as well. The trust and the credibility and even the graphic design can create credibility. All of these aspects you can test with. If you've got a strong value proposition, there's high potential for improvement, and then all of the other factors support that. Then we look at the relevance of the presentation, right? When you're thinking about your landing pages, look at the incoming keywords and say, okay, do those appear on the headlines? Are they prominent? Is that the main message that I'm talking about? Are there different segments that are coming that I should separate into separate pages to create even more relevance? The relevance of the presentation you can test to find what's the best message that directly matches their incoming needs. And then we look at the clarity of the presentation. So you can say, there's several different factors in clarity. You want to look at the clarity of the eye flow, right? Is there a clear line of sight between the most arresting image and the call to action and the most important content? The clarity of the copywriting, the actual words you're using, the clarity of the imagery and call to action. All of these things, if you communicate with clarity, will maximize your conversions. And then there are some factors that reduce conversion rate. The anxiety is anything on the page that creates uncertainty in the prospect's mind about taking action. Or maybe distraction. Distraction is one of the most important factors that we find for marketers who are terrified of leaving something out of their pages, right? And their pages have become this bloated mass of copy. Or people that are trying to write copy to appeal to every single persona out there that they've created. And it just creates bloat and confusion. And a lot of times there's a tension between clarity and distraction. And then the final factor is urgency. So you can test in urgency with offers and with actual just the tone of your copy. And all of these factors you can test with. So let's take a look at an example as well. This was for EA Sports. And this example shows how even small changes in your conversion funnel, your transactional end, can create great improvement for your conversion rate. So what they had is a new game release, and they were in their free monetization beta sign up period, and they needed to maximize this pre-launch window to get their install base signed up for the game and then flip into the monetization model. So the goal was to get more free beta signups. They had to reach a target quickly to be able to flip it on and to turn on monetization. Now I have to blur out some of the areas here so that for trademark reasons, so that there's some blank spots. But what I'm going to show you is how we go through the process of analyzing a page like this to come up with hypotheses to test. Now, this was actually after the landing page. So we'd already optimized on the landing page, and this was the conversion funnel. But what it shows is some interesting insights about form design. So the way we approach it is as always, look at the page from the perspective of the visitor and really look at the research and the data, information about personas, user testing, all of that stuff to get into the mind of the prospect. And then frame all of the potential problems through the lift model. So the first one is a distraction point, right? There's navigation throughout the conversion funnel. Once they're in the conversion funnel, we don't need a navigation, so that pulls users away from the form. There's little content hierarchy, right? It's sort of, the layout is a bit of a mishmash to try and figure out where you should focus your eye. These steps on the right look like links, but they're not clickable. Paragraphs are long, and if you've got paragraphs of more than 3 lines on your landing pages, people are not going to read them. Nobody likes to read online, so you want to keep that focused. The typeface is too small. Testimonials are not applicable in the transactional step. We've already got them into the funnel. We've already got them into the transaction. Let's get rid of all the distraction. There's sign up versus sign in that can create some confusion. Small button that's really nondescript. It's not standing out. And the create a new account is hidden. Okay, so these are just some of the aspects that we looked at, and it was a 3-step funnel, so we optimized the whole thing. But this is the approach you can take to categorize your potential conversion issues and find the most powerful elements to test and that will give you the best insights. So let's take a look at the variations we actually tested, and then go ahead and vote our conscience again and test our conversion skills. So this was variation A. And again, this was a dramatic redesign from the control. We'd totally gotten rid of that right column. We'd gotten rid of the navigation. We'd reduced the content and really focused attention. This was called variation A, redesign. Okay, and then variation B, we isolated adding the progress steps. So this progress bar indicator in the same design. Okay, and variation C, we isolated against variation B by changing the orientation of the fields to be horizontal instead of stacked vertically. Okay, so some minor, you may think, minor elements in a form design. And we, test hundreds of these things to really drill down into what works best. So again, we're going to test your skills. Which one won? Was it A, with no steps, the redesign, B, with the progress steps added, or C, with the steps and the horizontal fields? So I'm going to launch a poll. Go ahead and vote on which one you think won. A, no steps, B, with the progress bar added, or C, with the progress bar and the horizontal fields. Go ahead and put your vote in there. A for just the redesign, B for the progress steps added, and C for the horizontal fields as well. Okay, I'm going to close this down, close down the poll, and take a look at the results. All right. Look at that. We've got a 49% votes for the progress steps and 31% for horizontal fields and 21 for no steps. All right, let's see what actually happened. So, well, B got the biggest votes, C was in second place, and what actually happened was A won. And again, I've got to thank you for helping me out with this so much. But variation A won, and what's interesting here is, of course, there's this best practice floating around that status bar progress steps indicators are a best practice, right? This is sort of this tried and true, proven thing. You should always have steps, and it'll increase conversion, but it didn't. And in some cases, we're finding it does. In others, it doesn't, especially when the perceived investment is small. If there's the status bar can actually create anxiety if people signing up don't understand why they need to invest that much effort in creating their or completing the conversion, if there's a lot of steps and they anticipate that there's going to be some work involved, like if it's an insurance application or a bank account application, something like that, where they know that there's a lot of information, those steps can give them a sense of accomplishment. But in these kind of situations, they don't. So there isn't just this blanket best practice. You got to find out what actually works by putting on thinking caps and testing it out. So now I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about why landing pages are so important, and then how you can get the most power and value out of your landing page tests. So conceptually here, I'm going to step back and look at all of the opportunities for testing. And there's three general categories of the types of pages and test opportunities. The top part of the funnel is your persuasional end. These are your landing pages. And this is where Unbounce plays, of course. They manage landing pages and help you to build them quickly. But with landing pages, you've got to snag people on that page, keep them hooked on the page, and give them a quick value proposition and reason to stay there. But there's more than just landing pages as well. You've got interior pages, which are informational pages about your products and services. They may happen on your website. They may happen on other pages that you're hosting. And then there's the transactional end. These are your conversion pages, right? And this is where people have gathered enough information. Your prospects know that you've got the right solution, or they think you may be worth filling out a lead form to find out more. And that's where the real rubber hits the road, right? And all of these can happen on one page. If you've got a good landing page that's long form or that is a low investment decision, and you can get people converted all the way through on one page, but often it's going to happen on multiple pages on your website. Now, the great thing about landing pages, and I want to focus on that for a moment, is that landing pages are the best place to test your value proposition. Your interior pages and conversion pages are going to be more about the transactional end, about giving them information and then converting them and removing all barriers. But the landing pages are where you can find out what's your most powerful message to get across to your prospects to turn them into interested leads. So what I want to show you now is a framework that you can use to identify your most important value proposition points and then test them to find out what works best. It's called the DIP framework. I just decided to call it the DIP framework yesterday. I used to call it the pods, poise, and pops, but that was too long. So we're going to call it the DIP framework. And here's how it works. You've got three components you want to look at. You've got your prospects' desires. So this is what your prospects and customers are looking for, right? They need a solution to a problem, and that's why they're looking for your service or products. And then you've got your features. Your features probably don't line up exactly with all of your prospects' needs, right? You've developed a product, and it's never going to line up perfectly with all of your prospects. And then you've got competitors' features. And of course, they're going to have differences from you as well and have some different matchups. A lot of times, people are focusing on this area in the middle, the points of parity. This is the P in the DIP framework. And the points of parity are where the prospect's desires match up with your competitors' features. So your competitors also offer that, and your features offer that as well. So what you're doing is going out there and saying, hey, we have those features too. We're meeting your needs. We're doing what you want, and yeah, our competitors are too, but so are we. And that's where a lot of marketers are focused. Whereas the green field or the blue ocean or whatever analogy you want to call it is where your points of difference happen. These are your pods. And this is where your features match up with your prospects' desires, but your competitors aren't playing there yet. You've been able to find a unique angle that gives you a unique value. This is your unique value proposition. And then there's also another huge segment that a lot of people are focused on, especially companies that are sometimes engineering focused, the points of irrelevance, where your features don't match what your competitors have and they don't match what your prospects needs, but the engineers have spent a heck of a lot of time developing these features and they're really proud of them, so you want to promote them. And that's a bad place to focus as well, of course. So where you want to end up is looking at what are these points of difference, and you can workshop this and and outline what are all the features and benefits and perceived elements of our products and service that are valuable to prospects, and which ones are the competitors not touching. Now you can go in there and test different approaches to find out what do people actually respond to, right? And often you can give the same offer, and by testing just the emphasis, what do you go out with first? What's the first message on the landing page? Just by testing that emphasis, you can make a significant improvement in conversion rate. We had an example for EA where we tested the same offer in different ways, just emphasizing different aspects of the offer actually ended up doubling their game registration conversion rate. Just by, and what they found is that the types of offers within their overall offer, the more tangible they made them, the more they increased their conversion rate. And by reducing the amount of choice, they actually increased conversions. So let's take a look at another example here. This is an interesting one where, and the reason I showed this is it's a dramatic value proposition test on a landing page. So this was a test for Cytropin. This is a human growth hormone spray where you spray this in your mouth, and you get some energy and vitality and other benefits. And they had a lot of people coming into this landing page searching for human growth hormone. Okay, so this very targeted landing page. Their competitors were really focused on the value proposition about product purity. And Cytropin could have focused there as well. But we also knew that shoppers were worried about product effectiveness and some FUD in the industry about whether this stuff actually works, right? So in this case, we actually took two dramatically different approaches to target different value proposition angles. Variation A was an emotive approach, the aspirational approach, where we had emotional copy, right? The emphasizing the benefits of the product and really creating that emotive appeal. Variation B was handling the FUD, and what it did is positioned it as a medical, credible product. So with design cues from the pharmaceutical industry and reducing sort of the aspirational marketing type of approach. So, of course, as always, the question is which one won. This was an A/B test with a dramatic redesign to find out which approach of value proposition would get the best results. So what do you think won? Was it A, the emotive approach, aspirational, or B, with the FUD reduction, with a credible medical-based approach? All right, so I see your votes coming in. Was it A, emotive, or B, credible? Emotive or credibility? All right, let's take a look at the results. I'm going to close this poll and take a look at what you voted on. All right, so we've got, wow, an 80-20 split exactly for credibility. And yeah, and that, and what another thing to consider here, and this is a really interesting result, is these are two variations that you could never multivariate your way towards, right? These are two dramatically different approaches that really require the whole page to be redesigned to match this approach. And this is where the power of A/B testing is much more important than than multivariate testing in a lot of cases. Is multivariate testing will get you towards what's called the local maxima, where you can iterate and continue to improve on a page, but there may be an even better idea just a little bit away that you have to really clean the slate and try something new to get toward. So anyway, let's get to the real result here and find out what happened. You voted 80% for credibility. Well, it turns out that in this case, emotive worked better. 49% sales lift. Now, that's 49% lift in people taking out their credit cards and buying the product. Okay, and you may remember now from that example not too many slides ago that for Hair Club, that emotive approach wasn't the best approach necessarily. And in this case, it is. Different target audience, for one thing, and different sales copy, different context. It turns out that in this case, the emotive approach for this target audience was the best one. They really want to buy that promise of the fountain of youth, and worked just great for them. And now the owners think, spend a majority of their time in the Swiss Alps and just enjoying life. So with that 49% sales lift. Okay, so now we've gone through some examples. I've shown you some frameworks you can use. I want to leave you with the final thing that really is the number one takeaway that you should take away from all of these examples, especially with the votes that we've seen and the actual results. Everyone last year was talking about wanting to be a guru, right? They wanted to be the best e-commerce or landing page marketer, digital marketer they can. And this year, everyone's talking about being a ninja. And I don't know what next year, maybe next year will be senseis. I don't know. We keep evolving here in marketing. But, the only way to really become a conversion ninja is to run more tests, because only through actual hands-on testing can you really be able to prove and disprove a lot of these best practices that are out there and find out what actually works in your particular environment, your particular situation, and create your own playbook for what works and your own best practices. So I have one more question to leave you with, and that's what are you waiting for? Because every marketing presentation needs a cat. And then we'll have a few minutes here for questions, but I also want to mention a couple things that, as I said, the new book is out. You can download a free chapter at youshouldtestthat.com. So go ahead and take advantage of that. There's, no cost at all to that, and no one's going to pester you to buy the book. Just go ahead and download that if you like it. You can pick it up on Amazon, of course, but that chapter's free, and no DRM or any of that kind of stuff. That we're not Sony here. Or Microsoft. But also, I want to mention that we do have a free offer for a custom landing page evaluation. So if you're interested in a free conversion page evaluation with WiderFunnel, if you have over 250,000 monthly unique visitors, you can qualify for that. And to qualify, it's easy. Just send us an email with the URL and traffic volume of your website or a key page that you want evaluated, a landing page or whatever you want, and email to hello@widerfunnel.com, and we'll schedule you with a free evaluation. And if you don't have those traffic volumes, don't fret, because you can always pick up Unbounce really quickly. It's an easy tool to use. I use it myself for my own personal website. It's a great tool. They've done just an amazing job of creating an editor that you can go in there and make pages and edit them really quickly and set up A/B tests. So make sure you take advantage of that for sure. And so, Ryan, we do have some questions that have come in, I believe.
Yeah, Chris, we've actually got a ton of questions, and I think you have blown everybody's minds with your polls. No,
Everyone
we
is so
yeah, we
cooperative
had
today. It was great.
no, totally. We had lots and lots of feedback of people who were just continually stumped and totally thrown off, because as you've said, there's this idea of marketing best practices. These are the things that you learn to do. Emotion works better. But
Mhm.
as you've shown, forget the guy in the black turtleneck, forget the hippo. It's all about testing.
Right. That's certainly what we're finding is, and we love nothing more than running tests of best practices and really killing those, um, you know, big elephants in the room. An example is that we always love is the rotating homepage banner, right? This homepage carousel that probably the majority of websites in the world seem to have now. And
Hmm.
yet every time we test those, it's an art director best practice, right? But they lose almost every time. And it's because, they're created to solve the art director's problem. The art director runs out of real estate, so they say, well, let's just create another homepage and rotate them. But from a user perspective, it's terrible. There's lots of those.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we actually get asked about quite regularly, and that's a really good segue into a question someone had asked earlier in the webinar, which was about page length, and having a succinct page versus having a page that lists all the benefits. Now, I had spoken with a customer who wanted to use one of those carousels. They wanted a slider so that they could fit in, more keywords for their ad and basically improve their AdWords quality score and kind of stuff in as much content as possible.
Mhm.
Now, the question from the attendee earlier was, doesn't having a short, succinct page a short, succinct landing page from an ad come at the expense of quality score where you can fit in, more keywords, more content for Google to see?
Hmm. Yeah, there certainly is. Google looks at content. Content match is important, and a certain amount of content quantity as well. But you don't have to go overboard on quantity to satisfy Google. And in fact, there are indicators they're looking at that are more important than just the volume of content. They're looking also at the return to search rate. So if your page is relevant and and you get people sticking on the content and converting, Google looks at that, and if more visitors that arrive on your page and return back to the search quickly to click on another link will actually decrease your quality score. And so having a relevant page is the most important factor. And a lot of times you do have to have content. We saw the example of Iron Mountain, where having specific content about the features actually did improve their conversion rate. And by testing that, of course, you can really find out what the value of that content is. And what we're often doing is structuring a test that will look at the spectrum of content that's needed, from a short, concise page, reducing distraction, to more of a mid-length page with some of the features, to more of a long copy landing page approach. And often we're seeing interesting relationships between the industry and the amount of content that people need. And sometimes it's counterintuitive, but uh, long pages can work very well if they're written well, and invest in a good copywriter.
Yes, yeah, yeah, of course. And I mean, that goes back to exactly what you were saying earlier, when you demonstrated your lift model, and you were talking about relevance, and then testing incoming keywords just to see what will perform best on the page as well.
Hmm.
Now, that's also a really great segue into another question. Mark here has said, testing is great, and we know we should do it, but how do we come up with catchy call to action words, especially if you're not a good writer? Do you think investing in a good copywriter is the best solution?
Yeah, you know what? A good copywriter is worth their weight in gold, and it's amazing how uh, a small word difference can make a huge impact. We tested one, and there's always these uh, button copy tests that everyone's talking about, and sometimes button copy makes a big difference though, because that's really where you're triggering that action. And we tested a button copy change that just changed the copy to say um, continue versus find out if you qualify, and just making that change had a 16% lift in people completing the conversion. And so playing with those different triggers will make a big difference. And the only way to come up with the ideas though is to either hire a copywriter that's been doing this for a lot and does a lot of testing, or reading a lot about this topic, because there's all kinds of psychological triggers you can pick up from reading great books of ideas of people that do testing, of people that think about the psychology of neuromarketing and all of these different uh, concepts, and just trying and seeing what sticks, see what works, right? But basing your hypotheses and your variations on actual solving actual problems or hitting persuasional motivational triggers is much more important than just randomly coming up with different ideas.
We hosted a webinar a couple of months ago with Joanna Wiebe from Copy Hackers.
Hmm.
And in that webinar, she's talking about all kinds of different tips you can use to come up with ideas for copy on your page, what to test, how to test. And one tip she gave, which I've brought up, a number of times with, in these presentations, is to go where your customers are talking and check out the language that they use. So she gave an example of, going to Amazon reviews. Like, if you have a product that fits into, a particular vertical, go check out a similar product on Amazon, see what people are saying in the reviews, see what makes sense, and then test that language on your page. That way you don't have to, invent everything from scratch. You actually have something to go on.
For sure, and always look out for the industry terminology that you within the company are used to, because it's often shocking how much marketers assume that their customers understand what they're talking about, and yet they don't spend every day thinking about your service or your solution. And so, yeah, anywhere you can find your customers hanging out, and even doing surveys of people, general public, and you can do user testing where you find, can take a sample of your customer base, and give them samples of your kind of terminology, and find out what actually resonates with them, because they likely don't understand your terms as much as you do, and they won't understand your acronyms, and they don't speak the same way you do.
No, absolutely. And I mean, especially as a company gets bigger, here our success team is kind of on the front lines talking to customers, answering phones. And so we hear a lot of what, our potential customers are saying. So it's been a really great resource for us. Now we do have quite a few questions. It's a slightly different topic, but it is related to testing. But a lot of people are wondering about statistical significance and how large your sample size needs to be with these tests. Can you shed a little bit of light on, I don't want to use best practices, but when do you know that a test is significant?
Yeah, and sometimes the stats can be a little bit confusing, especially for those of us marketers who aren't statisticians. And fortunately, the tools that are available now do a great job of running the numbers for us, so we don't have to be constantly rechecking the statistical significance all the time as tests are running. But it's important to be able to plan how long your tests are going to run, so that you don't run into a lot of the problems that some people do of running too many tests, too many variations, I should say, and the test just taking too long to complete. So your test will complete faster based on a few factors. One is the volume of traffic. The other is the volume of conversions, and as your conversion rate approaches 50%, it's more likely to complete faster. And the other factor is the difference in the conversion rate between the variations. So by that I mean, if you have two variations you're testing that are dramatically different in terms of their performance, right? One has say a 50% improvement over the other one. It's going to complete much faster. That test will complete faster and with fewer visitors entered into the test than one where it's only like a 10% difference between the variations. So you never really know what that difference is going to be when you go into a test, of course, but you can help that along by testing dramatically. By testing dramatic variations, you can give yourself a better chance, at least especially early on, in getting a conclusive result at the 95% confidence level statistically, and that's really always the benchmark we aim for, the 95% confidence level, and then test fewer variations so that you're not splitting your traffic over too many. And usually, if you're going to start out, you just want to start with a sensitivity test. That's what we call it when we start out with just a simple test to get an idea of what your elasticity is of your conversion rate, right? Test a couple of variations, just two, and find out what the impact you can make just with some simple changes. And that'll give you an idea of, in future tests, how many variations you can test, how long you can expect it to run, and give you really a benchmark there.
Right, and that goes back to the test that you showed us earlier. It was the A/B test for I can't remember what it was called.
Cytropin, yeah.
Cytropin, yes, thank you. So testing, two significantly different pages will possibly give you kind of you may come across statistically significant results more easily than if you were to test just say, let's say, the banner color.
Yeah, exactly. And this is where a lot of times it's just sometimes it's funny some of these tips that you find on best practices blogs where they're saying, well, yeah, green buttons always work better than orange buttons, or red buttons are the best you should test. And really, it's not solving a problem for visitors. It may make the buttons slightly more visible, but the bigger differences you can make are in the cognitive differences. It's not always the pixel differences. It's not always what's dramatically apparent visually. Sometimes visual makes a difference, but cognitive differences that's what I call the changes that make visitors think something different. So it might be an offer tweak, and just a small offer tweak doesn't look like a big deal, but having a free shipping offer versus a $9 shipping offer can make an irrationally greater conversion rate improvement than the money you'll make from charging that $9, right? That's a big cognitive difference, but it's a small pixel difference. You're not actually changing that many pixels. You're just changing one word. And so think about what will make a big impact in the value proposition perception. And that will be a dramatic change that will likely get a faster result than even redesigning a page but offering the same thing.
I really like the idea of thinking of it as like a cognitive difference, because I do find that people tend to get a little bit hung up on these pixel differences on the pages. Button color is actually something that we're asked about fairly regularly,
I'm sure.
and I feel so bad, because when I'm on the phone with customers or emailing them, my go-to response is, you should really test that, because there's so many factors involved, and I don't mean for it to be a cop-out answer, and I do feel like sometimes people think that it is, but really there's so many other factors involved, and like you say, you'll get bigger differences with these cognitive differences on your page than just kind of small pixel differences.
Yeah, a button color test is probably the worst test to run. It's just insulting to your the potential your conversion rate opportunity cost. There's so many more important things you could be testing, right? And yeah, sometimes it'll make a difference, especially if your button is obscure or if it blends in with your background. But just design it with a certain amount of prominence, and you'll be good.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, test big.
Yeah.
All right, so I mean that brings us pretty much to the end. It's just about 12 o'clock here on the west coast of Canada, and we told our attendees that the webinar would be from 11 till 12 Pacific time. So we'll go ahead and wrap up here. But as I said earlier on, I'm going to stick around, so I'm going to stay online. If you're interested, please stay. You can ask me questions. I'll be here for quite a while. So I'm going to show a demo of Unbounce. As Chris explained, A/B testing is a great way to test these kinds of cognitive differences, and I'll show you how using Unbounce you can build these kinds of tests and run them. One question that someone had put up earlier on that we didn't have a chance to get to was, well, isn't A/B testing expensive? I do a lot of one-person efforts, and it feels like figuring out how to automate and trigger analytics testing on a funnel is really tricky. And that was from Rachel. And you know what, Rachel? I have had customers call us and say, my developer wants to charge me $2,000 to build a variant for an A/B test. So yes, it can be expensive, but with Unbounce, it starts at $49 a month. So you can either have a developer build a page, or you can pay for Unbounce for 2 years. So you've got some options there. So Chris, I'll take control over the slides here and pick up for you. I won't ask you to stick around because I know you're a super busy fella. But before you go, do you have any parting words of wisdom for everybody that's here?
Well, I think I've emptied my brain of most of my insights for today. But the tagline is always, you should test that. So have fun with testing, get into it, and really look at starting to develop the process before putting your neck out there and investing in organizational support for your testing program. Make sure that you're starting the right way to get the best results. There's always lots more information on our blog at widerfunnel.com/blog, and we're happy to have a discussion there as well. I know you're all already following Unbounce, and you'll continue to do that because they've got great ideas they're always presenting for you to test as well. So, but thank you as well, Ryan and Gia and Rick and Ollie and the whole team there at Unbounce for the invitation to present with you guys. It's been a lot of fun, and look forward to chatting again.